Harris. Creator and executive producer, Keenan Ivory Wayans. And our cast, David Allen Greer, Sean Wayans, Tommy Davidson, and Kim Wayans.
Hello, Tommy.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Tribeca, for hosting this, and thank you to all of you for being here. I'm excited to have this conversation tonight. So, how did everyone enjoy rewatching this? It's kind of wild to me, like rewatching this pilot and seeing when you first came out after the introduction. You could feel the energy in that room already, and the show hadn't even aired yet. And I think it speaks to sort of like the desire there was for something like this at that moment. And I think it's kind of important to put this show into context before we even get into it in terms of like what was happening at that moment. Obviously, we had a lot of famous Black comedians percolating: Eddie Murphy, Whoopi Goldberg. A few years before this, Robert Townsend had his HBO series, which a few of you were in, the Partners in Crime HBO special. And that was kind of similar, but it was just kind of a couple of episodes here and there. And then we get this show. Can you talk a little bit about, like, Keenan, was Partners in Crime, I kind of see it as a sort of precursor to this show. Can you talk a little bit about, like, how this came about?
Robert and I, Robert is my best friend from, like, day one in the industry. We literally auditioned together at the Improv here in New York, and we were the only two Black people online. And so we sort of bonded right there. And that's how our dreams started together. And we did Hollywood Shuffle first. And it was, for us, stand-up was our background. So sketches was like the first writing that we ever did. And actually, when we did Hollywood Shuffle, we wrote all the sketches first and then wrote the movie because we didn't know how to write a movie. And so from there, we took that same sort of partnership, and we went and we did Partners in Crime. That was the follow-up to Hollywood Shuffle. So it was, I think, more training than it was precursor, because In Living Color was a different kind of animal. It was more, just had more intent behind it and was more in your face. And yeah, the energy of it was just a little bit different. But Partners in Crime was definitely the step before.
And can you all talk about sort of what the energy was like for you going into this in the first episode, the first season, where your careers are at, and just what this moment was like for you? I could start with you, David.
Well, I think I told somebody today that the year that In Living Color, the pilot was going around, I had auditioned for everything. I think I auditioned for like 25 pilots, all white people. And I was that dude where they go, well, send David in, maybe we'll go a different way. I don't know. And then In Living Color was there, and there was percolating around this myth or this dream of someone should do a Black SNL. Eddie Murphy talked about it, Robert Townsend and I, who I met on Soldier Story. We shared a honey wagon, which is this really small dressing room. I thought he was the funniest person I'd ever seen in my life. He did Mo Money. He did all of the Wayans material. And so after the first day, I was like, this guy's a genius. And he goes, well, yeah, that's my boy, Damon Wayans. That's his character. And he told me how he and Keenan were going to start Homeboy Productions. They were going to do their own movies. And he introduced me to the Wayans. And anyway, there was that. Nobody had done it. Everybody talked about doing it. A Black sketch show from an African-American point of view. And Keenan is the one who actually did it. So I ultimately said, I want to do this show. My agent said no. I said no. And Kim Wayans called me after I moved back to New York, and it was like an intervention. She said, David, you're making a mistake. You need to come back out here.
Wait.
This show will change your life. And she was right.
Why did you say no?
Because I wasn't a stand-up
Scared.
comedian. Yeah, well, I didn't come. These guys all had, they had characters and stuff. I really came to the show as an actor. I didn't, I wasn't at home writing these sketches and all this kind of stuff. So I just felt like this is not really my forte, but it became that. I mean, so I never regret it. It was the best decision of my life. Yeah.
What about you, Sean, Mr. DJ?
How did I get on the show?
He was 9 at the time. Right away.
On the pilot of In Living Color, actually, if I'm not mistaken, I wasn't even the DJ. I was a runner. I was a PA on the pilot of In Living Color. So I watched the whole thing come together while I was getting scripts and coffee for everybody. And,
All night.
And then after they put the show together, one of Keenan's gut instincts was he felt like the DJ that they had didn't really mesh well with the flavor of the show, and they were looking for another DJ, and my name came up, and boom.
And how did that happen, Sean?
I think I knew somebody.
Did
a
you
friend
know
of mine
someone?
knew somebody. They wasn't sure if they were going to hire me, and then my mother called and said, "You better do it, boy."
Right.
So, that's how I ended up on the show, and I was the baby on the set, and then I got into the writers program later on, and I got to see how the sketches was put together and pitch ideas and irritate Keenan and Damon, and they taught me everything I know today. So, yeah, amazing.
And Tommy?
Is it my turn? No, actually, it was like a steam pot about to blow because it built. It had built up. Damon and Keenan and Jim and some other people have been out in Hollywood breaking down doors for us for years. And we finally arrived, me, Martin, DL, anybody that you know as a comedian came to Hollywood probably around 1988.
We met.
Yeah,
Tom.
we met at the
You,
Comedy
like a week
Store.
after he got in town.
Yes.
There was the club, Comedy Act Theater. We all performed there. It's a black-owned comedy.
Robin Harris used to
Yeah,
run it.
so it was like, Battle of the Beats.
Oh, yeah.
On Friday night, and Keenan and Robert Townsend and a lot of creators they actually were doing movies. We were like, shit, you could do a movie? Are you kidding me? So I actually met Keenan at the premiere of I'ma Get You Sucker.
I did that.
Yeah, oh yeah. And we walked in there and we were like, you can do a movie? And I met him and he said, man, you funny, man. I saw you at the Comedy Act Theater. So it was a steam pot about to blow because hip hop was at that point where Run DMC had their hit. It started crossing over. Ed and Dre on MTV. Yo MTV
Ed
Raps.
Lover.
Y'all don't remember Yo MTV Raps?
MTV Raps, that was my shit,
Yeah,
baby. I
so
love
it
that
was-
show.
So it was all
Sorry, Mr.
building up.
Wayans. I used-
And the Combine for comics was the Comedy Act Theater over in Crenshaw. And that's where all the baddest comedians, that's where we all went to do our stuff. So when I first came in contact with In Living Color, I actually passed on the show. I was actually like, I'm not going to do that. But I had no idea what it was. See, I was one of the hottest comics to come to L.A. I had a lot of opportunities. I had a pilot. I had a holding deal with Disney that was worth some money. I had a part on Murphy Brown, and I had a part to do Eddie Murphy's little brother on Coming to America. Wow. Right, the TV series.
You guys remember that role, right?
Yeah, it lasts about right. Exactly. Don't rub it in, Dave. Don't rub it in. Don't rub it. Yeah, that's the reason why I'm here. You see what I'm saying? You see the reason why I'm here? And so when I finally got the call from In Living Color, we go through ups and downs as artists. My mother even got to the point where she said, "Don't even tell me what you're doing no more. I don't even want to hear it because none of it happens." You know what I mean? Yeah, let me know when something happens, she told me.
When you get the check, call me.
Right. And so I went in for the show because my agent called me and said, look, what do you got to lose? If you get the show, you get it. If you don't, you don't. So I go in, Keenan's sitting there with the producer, Tamara Rawit, and I didn't know much about improv. So he'd do something like, you a Puerto Rican cab driver and it's on fire. You're a grocery store owner who got a shotgun in his hand, but it's a little girl. You know, and I was like, what the fuck is he talking about? You know, and it took me a while. I was like, and so I walked out of that thing going, what the hell was that? But then they had a stand-up. They had a stand-up audition at the Laugh Factory, and everybody was there. You name them, the comics that you know, they were there. It was 30 comics, and I was number 30. Wow. But never corner me. So I came in there, and the comedy gods gave me some sketch on Robin Williams. I mean, Robin, Robin, the one, Robin
Hood.
Tyson.
Robin Hood.
Right.
Robin Gibbons.
Yeah, the shit's going fast. And I just came up with some stuff, and I got a standing ovation, and it killed. And Keenan said, you know what? I'm picking you now. You know what I mean? And I still had no idea. And this thing that we did started out with a huge cast, was slimmed down, and then we waited for 6 months. So we were thinking, oh, man, here we go again. We're not going to do this. But we knew what it was going to do. That's why all that energy was built up. When Keenan came out, all the energy was like anticipation because America needed something new. And In Living Color was the thing.
But Dig, tell me, you were tight with Martin Lawrence.
Uh-huh.
So my last callback was me, Chris Rock, Martin Lawrence. I know I got the show, and Martin would come and watch, and we would kid around and stuff, and he did all right.
Yeah, he did okay. He did
Chris
okay.
Rock did all right.
So
well,
did
Chris
Chris
Rock
did
came.
okay.
He did
Chris
the show.
Rock did good.
Yeah, yeah,
He
yeah. Chris
did
Rock
pretty good. He did
He
pretty
did good.
Yeah, but that was the flavor. Go ahead, Kim.
Go ahead, Kim.
I forgot the question.
What makes you? I don't know.
Well, did your mom also tell you to do the show? How did that work?
No, actually, Keenan told me that he had something in mind that he was developing or whatever, and he wanted me to be on it, be a part of it. So I was working as an office temp at the time. I think in an oil and gas company, and so instead of doing what I was supposed to be doing, I was writing sketches, you know, getting ready, you know. So I was writing Grace Jones sketches and just different people that I wanted to do. Excuse me?
I remember that one.
Oh yeah, you should remember it. I had to carry you off stage with
Yeah,
no
you
shoe.
did.
My heel broke doing that Grace Jones sketch. I had on like stilettos like yay high, and they snapped in half. And I had Tommy on my shoulder. I had to summon up all
Right.
the, oh God.
Said, what the hell you doing? She said, shut up, it's almost over.
And carry him. But anyway, I digress. So yeah, so Keenan told me that this was, and I started writing sketches, and I had to audition like everybody else. I was there that night, flop sweating, doing stand-up in front of all kinds of people, and yeah, I got selected.
Well, I want to talk a little bit about that. Like, we're joking about how y'all got on the show, but was there any sort of tension or anything along the lines of like, this was very much a family affair to some extent, but like, what was it like did you have any conversations about this amongst the cast members, David and Tommy? Like, did you ever feel as though, you know, sometimes you weren't getting the...
No, but I'll tell you from my point of view. So I went to the Yale Drama School, and I bring this up because out of all the things I've done, my training was at that time to go and join a repertory company. And in a traditional repertory company, one week you're Hamlet, the next week you have a few lines. This was the closest I ever came to a repertory company. So 1 week it would be your sketch. Then the next week, I had a bit part in Tommy's sketch. And at least for me as a performer, there was a rivalry. We all had egos, but that just fired me up to come load that gun and come harder next week.
And
so it was that kind of thing that I reveled in. It was not, oh, why don't you give me more?
It was very competitive, but fun competitive. And like if you look at the first sketch in the pilot, the
Love Connection?
Love Connection, Jim has a small part, but he's stealing the show.
Yeah.
And that's what would happen if you had the small part in a sketch. You were going to try to get as many laughs as possible. And so it made every sketch a winner because there was never a small player in any sketch. Everybody was going for it. And I would play games with these guys. I'd do the sketch, and then I would say to them, keep something in your pocket. And then we'd shoot it again, and I would tell them just to improvise. So none of them knew what was coming at them.
Especially on Men On.
Yeah, and they would just go, and
Well-
great stuff came.
When we first read Men On, it was Keenan and Damon, and they were two brothers. And then a lot of that would happen, well, let me try it. So Keenan gave it to Damon and I, and originally I think the films were made up, but I think the key to those characters and the humor was when we took straight movies and we inferred our gayness onto them. You know what I mean? That was what was so subversive, and people would get really upset. Like Spike was upset. He said, "Man, that's not what I'm about, man." Like, are you sure? So it was a time back then where you could play with all that, and black folks, they got all in their feelings. They didn't like it. It was fun though.
Yeah, I remember you actually you stepped out of that sketch because you wanted to focus more on the overall
And
the
also,
show, executing everything on the
And
show.
you didn't want to play a gay
also-
character.
no,
Say
no,
it.
No, I was really, not to
David.
not to toot my horn, but not having ego is a really good thing. And if I saw somebody, I would let other people do it. And if I saw somebody do it better than me, I had no problem stepping back and going, you do it. Because what I wanted was the best.
Yeah.
So whoever was going to bring the best, that's who was in the sketch.
He encouraged us. We'd have these pitch sessions, and as soon as the show hit really hard, it hit. We won that Emmy. How many times was it? Like 3 episodes. 3 episodes we won the Emmy, People's Choice, and we were on a hit show. So we would still do these pitch sessions where we were supposed to come with our characters. We were lazy actors. Some people would work, but Keenan was like, "Dude, this is your time, man. This is your time. This is your show, man. I'm trying to give you this platform." So he was always encouraging us to use this time. It was limited. This show's not going to last forever. And you have all this support, and the nation is watching. Come with it. So that's what I really appreciate.
Yeah, Keenan's mandate was just kick their ass. Like, give the best that you got.
And then do it again.
Yeah, then do it again and pull something out your pocket, But he reminds me of Professor X from the X-Men, He took all of us mutants and put us together and was like, use your powers. You know what I mean? But the thing when I say excellence is that we had to study our scripts in the characters that we did. We were doing more than 7 characters each a week in different sketches, and we're featured in stuff. So we had to learn that stuff, know that stuff, and improv the stuff. So it was pretty intense in the table read. It was pretty intense in rehearsal. Not intense in a negative way, but if it wasn't funny, they let your ass know.
They let you know.
You sitting there trying to read, and it's like, hey, I thought
Today
that
it
this
would
was
be
funny in the rehearsal.
HR. It would be human resources meetings all day. Tommy, you hurt David's feelings with your attitude. Back then, they just fired, man.
Yeah.
But he knew everybody's powers, though. That's the other.
Yeah, that's
great
the thing.
It's like at the table read on Monday, he would cast the sketch right there. So he would say, "Tommy, you doing the guy in the kitchen, David, you gonna play the, and Damon, you gonna be the cow, okay?"
Yeah. Yeah, he was like, I'm telling you, it's like Rain Man. He come in there and change a whole sketch. Like I was doing this Michael Jackson sketch, and I was so happy. Half the stuff he asked me if you can do in front of the whole cast, I said, yeah, I can do it, and ran my ass home, and rehearsed it. But I did a big thing on Michael Jackson Black and White, and we went and we did the music, we did the video and all this stuff. So we're running through rehearsals, and I'm like, I'm going to kill this, and I'm going to kill it. So Keenan comes in, and I do it for him, and he's got his bowl of oatmeal. He said, this is a sidewalk. When you go down the sidewalk, hopscotch. When you get right here, the fan's going to blow you, so just let the fan blow you back. When you hit he said, right here, you're going to hit the, you're going to hit the window of the car. Just do something Michael would do, like, And then at the end of the sketch, just do something, say something that's Tommy. So when the police put the handcuffs on me, I just said, I guess I am black.
I feel like there's so many sketches to that point where I can actually, when you say that, I can see how there could be many takes and many different things, like especially the Benita.
Betrayal.
Yeah, where
You ain't heard it from me. I ain't want to talk. You ain't heard it from me.
in case you
Miss
need
Jenkins. Don't talk about no Miss Jenkins now.
Oh my God.
the gossipy neighbor who, I mean, she was great, but like were those the type of things where you would just have different terrible things to say about that neighbor, or different yeah. Can you talk a little bit about like creating that character?
Well,
Put
she
the
was
mic up.
kinda-
Mic up, Kim.
Oh, sorry. Okay, she was basically inspired by some of the women in my neighborhood that we grew up with that would just sit around on the bench all day talking about people's kids. So I won't name anyone in particular, but she knows who she is. She's famous now. You can't tell her she's not a star because she knows who she is. She knows I immortalized her as Benita. But anyway, yeah, so that's how Benita Betrayal came into existence.
And
And
I
we
used
used to have
to-
so much fun. I used to have so much fun doing her, you know?
He would always be behind the window with.
Yeah, I would
Yeah.
keep making her the Benita Betrayal, but the one that really sort of tested her chops early was Tracy Chapman. Where,
The fast car.
yeah, where she had to make up songs.
Yeah.
And I just kept sending her back to the window, and she was like what? And then she would go to the window, take a beat, and come back and have a song. And I just kept
Without a
making her
script,
do-
though.
Yeah,
This
no
is without a
script.
script.
Just kept making her do it over and over
Twiddly
again.
dum, twiddly.
So, yeah, I mean, everybody. See, the thing was,
he's
David
up
said.
again. Remember that?
David said that he thought he was an actor. That was the thing, is that you have ideas of who you are. And I could look at them and I could see, no, you're way more than that. It's like Tommy.
You told me that. I don't know if you remember, but I know when you came to me and said, look, I have this show, and people don't know how funny you are, because we would hang out all the time.
What we had also done, I'm going to get you something.
Exactly. And Keenan was like, man, you really need to do this show. I want people to see how funny you are. And I was like, I really wanted to play like, the Negro doctor or lawyer. I'll get that, nurse. Thank you. No, he was like, this is your mission, man. This is your ministry.
and
So I
that's-
listened.
and none of us were impressionists. I had never done an impression in my life. We were mimics. We were comedians. It's like, if I spend 10 minutes with you, I can come out here and I can do you, or a version of you, a funny version
Is that a
of
challenge?
you. No.
Wait, you know what?
Yeah, we gonna do it now.
Watch what you say.
Watch what you say.
But wait, you know what? Politically, I think, none of us, this was none of our first jobs. So as African American performers, we had all been in that position where, well, Tommy, Keenan, Sean, tell me what's funny. And we would talk about a character from our perspective. And to this all-white executives, they would look at us with a blank face and go, why would you do a sketch about that? This was the first time in which we were encouraged to mine our own culture in a different way, stuff that had been neglected and that we would laugh about every day. Every day. That was the uniqueness. That was
like-
I was sitting in the audience listening to the thing. Somebody sitting over there, one of the ladies said something about, what'd you say about our racism?
Yep.
Yeah, but,
Yeah.
but
Credit card.
You said something about how much we enjoy our racism.
You have
she
to
was
or you'll go
watching the sketch.
crazy, man.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, is like we have a very rich culture, and it just hadn't been showcased, And so every single character that we have done were people in our family, in our neighborhood. It was all friends, family, and neighbors. That was
Or that black people talk about
yes, right.
all the
Somebody
time.
you know.
I remember I was in a restaurant after the show had been on, and this group of gay black men mobbed me, and this old white lady was there. Was like, "Who are you?" They went, "Girl, he's famous. He is famous." It was too funny. It was too funny. I was like, "Sorry."
Now that you mention it, I do want to talk a little bit more about the Men On series, just because, you've talked about this before, but even when it came out, it was highly controversial in terms of media outlets like GLAAD or organizations like GLAAD, and then other people felt as though the depictions were stereotypical or exaggerated, and the character of the gay man as sissy,
Right.
as a sissy. And I'm curious as to, if you were making the show today, how would you approach that, or would
I
you?
don't think you can. I mean, this is my own
well, I know-
personal
yeah.
opinion. I feel like that was 1990. My personal politics, my knowledge of trans, gay, LGBTQT culture, I say that because I'm trying to get all the letters out, is different. I have evolved from then. But back then, what I would say is there was never any malice in our portrayal of these gay men. You understand? At least from my perspective at that time. But it was very much of its time.
Yeah, I agree that the characters, but I think that the sketch could be done today. I think that we have more information about gay culture, so we could make it even funnier.
Yep.
Maybe we would have gay cast members.
Yeah, we would have,
Yeah,
right,
that's a
exactly.
different
That would be the
perspective.
thing. We would actually
that's a
have
whole
gay
nother
cast
thing, man.
members
Right.
to do it. But like David said, the whole intent of the show, that's what I was saying earlier about the difference between Partners in Crime and In Living Color was intent. And the intent of the show was to include everybody.
Everybody.
So
Diversity.
everybody's gonna laugh. And so we did handicapped characters. We did,
Robin Givens was an over-the-top stereotype of a black woman. She just wasn't gay. I mean, that's the nature of sketch.
Yeah, right.
It was all-inclusive, so we offended
Everybody, right.
aspect of black
that-
culture.
Opportunity offenders.
Gay people.
And that was the intent, was, like I said, for everybody to get involved. And you can only be as good as the time period that you live in. You know what I mean? You with the information that you have. And so that's what we tried to do.
We wanted everybody to go, man, that's messed up, but that's funny as hell, though.
Well, but I remember
too.
at the time, though, the response from the gay community, at least what I read, because you have to understand, you had to send a fax, you had to write a letter, or you had to call the station. There was no Twitter, there was no Instagram, there was no YouTube. You couldn't just pick up a mic and go and blast.
I don't think there was emails.
No,
But what I'm saying is, what I remember is it was very generational. The younger gay community endorsed us, and older, more conservative gay people were like, we shouldn't talk about that. So there was definitely that generational split, but you'd have to, that was then.
Yeah, I mean, obviously not. We don't want to lump the queer community into everyone loved it or everyone didn't hate it.
I can't
Yeah,
speak for them.
right. But like in that time period, I can also understand when we're coming off the AIDS crisis, and there weren't really any other portrayals of gay black characters in mainstream culture, or if they were usually.
Keenan wrote it. It's his fault.
Well,
I'm
No,
just
but
offering a different.
It's true,
yeah.
but like I said, you're talking about a time when gay people didn't have a voice.
Yeah.
There was no voice. So, like I said, you have limited information. We didn't even know that there were other kinds of gay people. That was who represented gay people at that time. Like I said, now it's different because you see gay people in all different lights. So, like I said, you can only work with the information that you have.
I mean, speaking a little bit more about like the intent and the audience, obviously when this show came out, Fox was still very, very new. They'd had the Tracy Ullman show, The Simpsons was very new still, 21 Jump Street. I don't even know if they were programming every night at that point.
No,
it
they
was
weren't.
still it was very new, and run by white people. And
No. You kidding me? No.
And so, like you said, it was very, the fact that this show even made it to the air is like kind of astounding. Can you talk a little bit about some of the things? I know you had a lot of battles in terms of censorship and things like you wanted to get on air or didn't want to get on air. Now it's really hard to find like this show online. Like unedited for various reasons, whether it's licensing of music or whatever. Can you talk a little bit about like what that was like to deal with Fox in that sense?
Well, here's the thing. It's nice when they don't know.
Yeah,
So
it's
what we
cultural
used to
ignorance.
do, yeah, we used to have fun with the censors. So we, it was
Hide it from 'em on Thursday.
A couple of instances where what we would do is we would put things in that we didn't want to be in there, and then we would laugh really hard at the table reads or in rehearsal, and the censor would get nervous, and they would come and go, you can't say that. You got to come up with something else. So there was one time, the guy comes over and he goes, you can't say
Kayak City.
Kayak City, because everybody, that's what we had, Kayak City, and everybody was laughing. He goes, no, you can't say Kayak City. We go, no, well, can we say toss your salad? He goes, yeah, that's fine.
Or what about?
It's just veggies.
Yeah, what about the Headleys? The Headleys was the hardest working Jamaican family.
Right.
And the white executives, they
Hey,
didn't
man.
know. Yeah, they didn't
Yeah.
know these Jamaican
And
curse
we would
words
put all these
and
Jamaican
terms.
bumbleclad and all
Right.
this stuff.
So
And
by the time the Jamaican viewers
community-
wrote in, we'd already done like 3 or
Right.
4 episodes, and they're like,
This bumbleclot, what is that? You got to take that out.
and so we'd already won. You know what I'm saying? By that point,
But
cultural
it's,
ignorance.
But as far as the censors go, I think in a way Keenan created monsters out of us because he said, I want you to go for it, I want you to go for it. But then we took that to the extreme. And so we were the censors were coming and saying, we're gonna shut the thing down. So Keenan would come to us and go, look, man, y'all gonna do that again. Don't do that again. And we'd be like, okay. And do it. And do it, and it still went. And that's what made our show so cutting edge is that we actually went to the edge. We took the chances.
Yeah, like I said, it was intent. But, to the credit of the censors, especially in the first couple of seasons, what I said to him was, don't tell me what I can't say. Let's talk about how I can say it. And so we would go back and forth until we actually came up with something that was acceptable to both sides. And it was a lot of negotiation, but
You should tell them. I mean, a lot of times, like I didn't realize this till I did Chocolate News. You would have to sit and say, can I say this? Yeah. Can I say? So you go down a list. I can't say motherfucker. Can I say this? There'd be a list of 10 or 12 words until you finally found a word that they would allow. Sometimes it became even funnier.
Well, you have no idea how regulated television is. Yeah. So in Living Color, we shot it, and it sat on the shelf for a year.
The pilot.
The pilot. They wouldn't air it. And I met with Peter Chernin and Barry Diller, and in walks a group of guys, all white guys, suits, like that white guy that you never see, you know what I mean? Unless it's like a national crisis, you know what I mean? It's like that back row of Bush's speech after 9/11. It's like those
the white
guys.
people are that on the back of the money?
Yeah, it was like seriously, they came in very quiet, everything. They had a clipboard. And the guy starts to tell me, they had screened the TV show. And he starts telling me the audience reactions, but he's not telling me what they laughed at. He's telling me what they felt. I was like, whoa. Then they start interviewing me, and the guy says, so tell me your vision of the show. And I start talking about the show, and I go, I think it'd be revolutionary. And they all sit up and go, revolutionary? I was like, no, not like that. But seriously, like they listen for words, and they want to know how people feel. It's called programming for a reason.
But also, I remember people would ask, is this a political show when it first came on? And my initial answer was no, until I realized just from the fact that we were mostly African Americans writing and creating and performing, that in and of itself makes it political, okay? We just wanted to be free. I did as a performer. I just wanted to get off, man, and to do stuff that no one ever allowed me to do. That became a political act.
Remember, yeah. The jump-off point for the show, though, Keenan, which is interesting, is how did you even end up getting the show? Because because it's an interesting story. Remember?
Well, it was after I'ma Get You Sucker.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Yeah, after I'ma Get You Sucker, Fox was just looking to push the envelope, really, and I had a screening of I'ma Get You Sucker for the film execs, but they didn't show up. The TV execs came and invited me to come meet with them, and I was like, I don't want to do TV. I want to do movies. And they said, well, you can do whatever you want to do.
Oh, yeah.
That's the theme song.
And, yeah, that's why it's in the theme song.
That's
That's
the
why
theme
Heavy
song,
put
yep.
it in there, because I told them this story, and that's why it's in the theme song. But that's the truth. They said we'll let you do what it is you want to do.
You know what? I had a question. When I remember in that year where we done the pilot and it wasn't picked up, but when I would go and do other jobs, like I did a guest spot on Alf, the crew would come over
On
to
Alf?
me. Yep. I was the black guy.
The black guy on
Yeah. But
Were you
no,
a- were you a
real
puppet?
quick. No. You couldn't say Muppet. I remember that. If you said Muppet, you got your ass
He was,
whooped.
he was
Or
the
my puppet.
he was the janitor. You had to sweep up all the stuff after Alf used
No,
to
We
but
all
the
Al's
crew,
hair.
they had all seen the pilot of In Living Color. It began to circulate, you understand? So when I would do these jobs, the crew, the directors would be like, dude, what is this show I'm seeing, man? This is the funniest shit I've ever seen in my life. And I'll be like, this is a pilot I did. And a lot of that, when you say, what is the energy? I know for me, I never thought we'd get picked up. I just didn't. So for me, it was like, we just gonna get off right now tonight. And it was just go for broke. I did not, until we got picked up, I did not think that Fox would really say, here's some money and go do this.
As we wrap up, I want to talk a little bit about the legacy of this show because, you know, we always talk about SNL and how it spawned countless careers and franchises, but when you think about this show, I don't think it necessarily gets its due for all of the careers it spawned, and not just the more obvious ones like yours or J-Lo's or, I mean, Rosie Perez was already big, but it puts her into another stratosphere. But also Larry Wilmore was a writer in that room, and you
Yeah.
had Jamie Foxx later on. And I'm curious as to what you think about the shows that have come in its wake that have, adopted some of the DNA of your show. Something like Mad TV, which came out right after the show ended. Even Chappelle's show, Key and Peele. Yeah. What do you?
Well, I thought that of all the ones that came after, the Chappelle show to me was sort of the next evolution. And
Oh, Chappelle.
I thought he did a great job. And then after him, I thought Key and Peele,
Yeah, they
had the
did.
next evolution after that. I thought that those guys, it's difficult to kind of find your voice. And I think that those guys definitely, they like you said, they did it the right way. It's like, it's okay to be inspired by, but you don't want to duplicate, So I was inspired by Richard Pryor, and those guys were inspired by In Living Color, but they took that inspiration and created something original. And so I was very proud to see it move forward in that way. But just to go back, In Living Color, you talk about legacy. If people were to look at the credits on In Living Color, I would say 80% of our staff were all women and women of color.
Talk about it.
We had, I mean, from the co-executive producer to the line producer, the first black woman to direct a sketch show was Terry McCoy, rest in peace. Pam Vise was head writer.
Wardrobe.
Bristol Rivera, yeah, wardrobe. I mean, it was, and this was 30 years ago. You know, the things that we were able to do back then, people are fighting about now. And it's like, it ain't that hard. You just got to do it. That's it.
And another beautiful thing about the show that nobody gets to see is that we worked as a full unit. Our sound department, our camera department, the writers, the actors, even makeup. We all would come up on the stage while sketches were going. People knew what was going on. We were all laughing by the end of the night, all of us, cameramen, everybody. It was like one big party. So what you guys saw was a fraction of the fun that we were having back there, and that's what you guys got.
Yeah. And I wish that the whole cast was here.
Yeah.
Some of them were busy.
Well, the one, yeah, but because, and the reason is that we really had, it really was a group effort, and it was in front of the camera, behind the camera, and everybody supporting each other, and like I said, competitive, and just pushing each other to be their best, and so.
Well, you know, in my dressing room, man, the first year we were talking about the legacy of the show. I remember Jim Carrey was sitting with me, and I was like, man, this show, you do the show, you know, then I'm going to go do something else. And Jim was from the very beginning saying, no, man, this is history, and this show's going to last. It will last and stay the test of time, which I didn't really see in that moment.
You were really negative, David, weren't you?
But Kim, I wanted to ask him a question as a woman and as a black woman on the show.
Sister.
How did you feel? Did you feel an importance that your voice was being heard? You were creating your own content and creating these characters.
You stole my question.
You didn't ask it, girl. Stop lying.
You had your chance.
You know, David, I never really looked at it that way, honestly. You know, I was really, young. This is like my second thing. I had done A Different World, a few little under 5 lines on A Different World.
And I'm going to get you, sucker. That's the lounge singer, and I'm going to get you, sucker. Don't forget that.
But so this was like my first big foray into, the industry. And I just was like consumed with just having fun and just being crazy and just doing my thing. I never really thought of it in those terms. But now that you pose the question, and I think about it now with some, distance from it, I feel like it was very important for me as a black woman to have had that opportunity. And I don't really think anybody at the time, any other black woman that I knew, was doing that kind of stuff. And I feel that I had a opportunity to like showcase myself or the diversity of what I could do in Living Color. And I'm really eternally thankful to my brother for giving me that opportunity, because it was something special.
But personally, the thing that impressed me the most about Kim was she was fearless. She didn't care what it was. She was like, "What y'all gonna do? All right, I'm gonna do it with you." She was fearless. She always went in 100%. That Grace Jones thing. She was close to my face. Her mouth was right here, and she's like, I'm like, oh my God.
Commitment. That's
but she
something
was
Keenan
committed.
Taught me, that you have to commit 100%. He taught me that there's no vanity in comedy. You can't worry about looking cute. You just go for broke.
And what else impressed me about Kim, since we're on the topic, is not only her performance, but her writing. She wrote
Thank you, sir.
Tracy Chapman. She wrote Cephas and Reese. She wrote.
We wrote together.
Oh yeah, with David. I'm sorry. David
helped her with that.
She wrote Benita Petrel. So she was in it. David too.
And writing for the women was very tough. The women in the writers' room No, they were soldiers.
They were gangster.
They were
They were.
heroes because you have to understand that at the time, and I didn't even know how rotten men could be. You know what I mean? Just in terms of, it's not.
It was a struggle.
No. It was competitive.
Yeah.
And at that time, women weren't accustomed to being in that kind of cutthroat, squash you, because the guys, they were brutal, not just to the women, but to each other. And they had the women, the female writers on that show really had to, they had to grow some because, yeah,
You had to talk loud.
to get her to get their stuff on and to be to go toe to toe.
Well, we are out of time,
Oh.
but
Ah,
I want to thank you all so much for this show, and then also for coming and talking and sharing your stories. And thank you, Tribeca, and
Thank
everyone
you.
enjoy the rest of the festival.
we want to thank y'all.
Thank you, Tribeca.
Yes.
We want to thank y'all too.
Thank to the audience.
No In Living Color without y'all.
And shout out to all the cast that isn't here: Jim Carrey, Damon
Damon.
Wayans, Jamie
J-Lo.
Foxx,
Crystal.
Kelly.
Takia Kamai,
Kelly,
Crystal,
Takia.
Kelly,
Caulfield.
Steve Park.
Steve
Fly
Parks,
Girls, Steve Park,
Marlon Wayans.
Marlon Wayans.
And TJ.
Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And
D.
TJ.
Halboo.
And TJ.